to Framing 101. This is a 6-part mini-series that we're having. You can check us out like you are right now on Facebook. Like, share, make sure you comment. But this is Sam Bowie. He's a professional custom framer. He's got over 20 years experience, and he's basically taking a step-by-step everything that you need to know about how to accomplish your own framing projects at home. So if you missed our earlier episodes, we already talked about different frame styles, how to pick the right frame for your piece of artwork. He showed us how to fit canvas to a frame, how to wire a frame for hanging. We talked about glass selection and how to fit glass into your frame with spacers. So Sam, if you'd like to take over and tell us a little bit about mat cutting.
All right, well, first thing we're going to do here is I'm going to do a demo with our Logan mat cutter, which I think we rent these now, is that correct?
That's correct.
We rent these, so you could rent one and do this at home yourself. This is a 16 by 20 pre-cut blank mat. All the stores sell these on the floor, so they're standard sizes that fit all the frames that we have except for the bigger sizes. And then they can cut a mat opening at the frame counter for you. So if you bring in art, this is for if your art doesn't fit into a ready-made frame and you don't want to spend the money getting the custom framing done, we can mat your art out into a ready-made size. So you can save a lot of money on the frame. You'll be paying for a custom mat cut, maybe custom glass if you want to get a nicer grade that maybe is in the frame, or if you need it at all. And they can cut an opening out of the mat for you. I think it's like $12.50 to do that. So you buy a scrap mat, I think something like this is less than $4. So for $16 or so, you can get a mat cut to fit into your frame and a custom size. We have this piece right here. This is a 12 by 16 piece. So as I demonstrated on the last episode, it could go directly into a frame. But say you wanted to add a little accent and maybe put a nice little mat around it and give it a little more volume. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mat this out, pretend like it's not a standard size. I'm going to mat it out to fit into a 16 by 20 frame. And I'm going to show you how to use the Logan mat cutter. So this is my mat that I'm going to use. This is the cutting head for one of our Logans. The blade is this right here. It comes down. It gives you that bevel when you cut it. So it'll give you a beveled mat, and you'll see that in just a few minutes. The Logan has all these guides on here. The most important guide is this one right here. That is where you set your mat against, and that creates the width of your margin when you cut it. I've already got this set at 2 1/4, so I know that it'll come over just a little bit. The opening I make on this 16 by 20 mat will come up over just a little bit on our piece right there, but not cover anything up. And for all you artists out there, I recommend a signature kind of about that far in on your substrate. If it's right at the edge, you're A, going to lose it when you mat it, or B, lose it under the edge of the frame when you put it in the frame. So make sure you sign it a little closer in so that you have enough room to mat it or put it in the frame without anything covering up the signature. I've seen that happen in the past and gave a pencil to the artist, said re-sign it. So it was signed somewhere closer. But anyway, I will show you how to use one of these Logan mat cutters. And forgive me, it's been a long time since I've had to do it this way. We have what's called a Wizard CNC machine that we use now, where all I do is type in some numbers, hit enter, and it'll cut it itself. And it's a really cool machine, and we'll demonstrate that in a minute. You guys are welcome to wait at the other side of the counter and look back in the frame shop and see how it works. But this is the old way. This is the way I learned how to do it many years ago. So what I got right here is I got this set at 2 1/4. I'm gonna create my margins, but I gotta know where they are when I get ready to cut. So, basic pencil.
And as Sam does this, I want to let you all know, in case you didn't know already, we're actually going to be rolling out demos like these to all of our Jerry's Art Around stores. So no matter where you are, as long as you're close to one of us, our framer in that location can show you how to do this, and you can also get hands-on with it and try it yourself.
Yep. All right, and the reason why I'm doing this is so that I know where the cuts are. So that's the opening I'm gonna cut out. Each of these intersecting lines, I know where to stop and start and stop my cut. Now Logan is really good to help you out. Katie, if you can see this, these little hash marks. So that's kind of your guide. The middle one would be lined up right here. I always tend to go about 2 ticks to the past for a cut to start, and then 2 ticks past for a cut to end. If you don't do that and you come short on the cut, you're gonna have to use a razor blade to get it to pop out the opening or the middle piece. If you pull it out, you're gonna tear it, and then you'll have like little tear marks. Overcuts are okay as long as they're minimal, and that's something that's kind of unavoidable doing it the old way.
Sounds like practice makes perfect.
It does, and I'm gonna make this look a little easier than it actually is. So just to let you guys know, you're gonna get home. If you're gonna rent one of our mat cutters, I would get some cheapo mat board to practice with before you go and do your final mat, because you're more than likely gonna overcut or slip or something like that. You got to be really careful with it. And this is a great mat cutter. It's not the best of these handheld mat cutters, but it works. If you put it against this rail right here, you have stability because you always pull the cut like this. And what I'm going to do is just start the cut right here. So you've got my little hash marks.
Closer so you can see the blade.
So that's a hash mark right there. I'm going to come a little bit past it to start my cut. So I'm starting my cut. I'm in the board. And it is really hard to pull. And then just come barely past. And you want to do it,
I would just keep going. I was like, whoops.
And you want to try to do it in a fluid motion. If you stop and start and stop and start, you're going to see these little ridges on your bevel. They're not really noticeable, but you might see them, and they can always be shaved down with emery board, which is sandpaper, basically a fine grit sandpaper. It's good for cleaning up those little edges. Hopefully I won't have too many of them. So I always do the two long sides first and then do my short sides.
So
If you
dumb
guys have any
question.
questions,
You're
yeah.
setting it in place and then pushing the blade down, correct?
And I'm like, yes. All right. That might not look too good when it's done, but we'll see. As you guys can imagine, it's not too difficult to do a rectangle. But if you're doing multiple openings the old-fashioned way, you would have to do all the cuts for one bevel direction at one time, flip it, do them all for another bevel direction, flip it, and do it that way. If you try to do them all at once, you're going to end up with a bevel going the wrong way. So it's really difficult. That's why I'm glad we got a wizard machine now. We just program those openings and it'll do it for us.
And we'll show you guys that in a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really neat thing. And but this is the way I learned. This is the way they did it many years ago, and it can still be done. And for people that aren't doing mass quantities, these things are great. You can rent one, take it home, cut all your mats, bring it back, and you're done. Oops. See, that's why I usually push it against there, because you really have to drag this thing hard to get it to go through. All right, hopefully I got it to work. I got one more side to do. So those is coming out nicely. Got one more side to do.
So good, he sticks it under. Right here where it says set scale is how you get the width of
your margins, yeah. Now you might have varying margins, which you might run into matting something out to a ready-made frame. If you have a non-standard size piece of art and you go into a standard size frame, there is the chance you can have wide margins versus narrow margins just to fit it in there. Now if it's a margin, if the width is on the top and the bottom, what I would do is weight the bottom. So I would have my sides and my top the same width, and if I had that leeway with the thick and thick versus thin and thin, I'd weight the bottom. So I'd move the opening up there and have a thicker bottom. The reason why some people weight the bottom is because most art hangs about 59 inches off of the wall from the center point. And if the mats are even all around and the short person walks up and is looking up at it, that bottom margin is going to look narrow. So they weigh it out to even it up for short people, basically, is where it started from. But it's a perception thing, and it's also an aesthetic. It looks good on some pieces. We'll do my final cut here.
And notice Sam waits until it's completely lined up before he pushes this lever, just so you don't get any of the stutter marks in there from where you're hesitating and trying to get the blade lined up.
And there's the mat. Oops. It's okay if you ding the corners, they get hidden under the edge, and that's not too bad. Katie, if you want to look at that corner, because that's probably the best you'll ever get doing a hand cut, because there's no overcut on that corner. And that's a tricky thing, and you will overcut. When you first try this, you'll probably have a ½ inch overcut, and if you don't slip and go all the way to the end and cut off one whole edge. But basically, so that's how that would fit in there.
And there's a huge difference between using a mat cutter versus trying to go at it with a
X-Acto knife?
I was about to ask that.
Yeah.
Exactly, X-Acto knife. Did you see this bevel here? You're getting some of the
white core,
inside
the white core of the
core
mat, yeah. And actually, so that another aesthetic that you've done that I've seen done in the past is they'll color the bevel. They'll take it, and when I don't know how they do it without getting bleed over onto the face. They probably mask it off. If you do that and you use a masking tape, you're gonna have to lightly put it down because this is paper. That colored part is paper and it'll peel right up. But coloring the bevel's another aesthetic. And that's simply the way that would go on, and that would fit inside that 16 by 20 frame. You saw me fit one in earlier, or without the mat. The mat actually acts as a spacer, so you don't need to have the spacers when you have a mat because that keeps the glass off of the art. And you can do double mats, which we're going to show here in just a second. I guess we're ready to do that now, aren't we?
Yes, we are. First, do we have any questions from our audience?
Okay, great.
All right, we'll meet you all back at the wizard in the back, and Sam's going to show us how much easier our custom framing department can do these mat cuts for us.
Yep. All right, you ready? All right, Heather, we're all set. So we're cutting the bottom mat right now.
What's the dial one?
10, 11.
Okay.
So only about 10 times faster than you.
It's a little quicker than what I did with the Logan.
Just a tap.
A little bit quicker than what I did with the Logan mat cutter, as you can see. And that was the top mat, or the bottom mat. We're going to cut the top mat now,
gets
so this
that
is our
set
top
up.
color.
You see just super clean edges. And again, at any Jerry's, we can do this for you for just $12.50 plus the cost of the
$12.50.
mat.
Yep.
Like you said, these are mat scraps, so
Yep.
giving you all the secrets today. Ready?
Ready? This is our top mat we're cutting right now. That was it. And what the mat cutter did for us, and if I was to do a double mat with a Logan, I would have to cut the top mat first because it has a narrow or wider opening. Adhere the bottom mat to it, use the same margin guides, and then cut the inner mat, but I would have to come in a little bit and make the bottom mat work right. And the way these guys are going to work, you got to line them up. And sometimes you'll see a little overlap on the edges, but that's okay. It'll be hidden under the rabbet. But you basically double stick those guys together and you got a double mat.
All right, so thank you all again for sticking with us. Stay tuned. On our next episode, we're going to talk about the archival properties of framing and getting into fitting, how we put it all together, and then also hanging, because what's the use of a great frame and great art if you don't know how to put it on your wall?
Yep.
So like, share, comment, and also check out a Jerry's Autorama near you, because your local framers are going to be hosting demos just like Sam is today. So thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Heather, our guest framer, and we'll see you all in the next episode.